Welcome to the RecoverMate Podcast, where love, sobriety, and life gets real. I'm Rick.
And I'm Danielle. We're a husband and wife team sharing our personal journey through sobriety. And together, we are having all the difficult conversations that most people are too afraid to have in their relationship.
We're diving deep into the hard stuff, from our own past to recovery, parenting challenges, finances, and everything in between that comes with building a life together.
And trust us, nothing is off limits here. We're keeping it raw, honest, and unfiltered because that's what recovery, love, and real life looks like.
So whether you're sober, curious about recovery, or just looking for ways to keep love alive while living a sober life, you've come to the right place.
We're excited to share our most forbidden conversations with you. So grab a seat, buckle up, and get ready for the kind of discussions that you won't hear anywhere else.
Let's go! What are the signs of alcoholism? Understanding alcohol addiction can be tough, especially when it hits close to home. Today, we're diving in some key signs and symptoms to help you reflect or support someone you care about. This is a safe space for reflection and awareness, not for judgment or labels.
So I'm actually really excited about today's episode, particularly because I have wanted to sit you down, locked in the hot seat, and ask you some questions around your alcoholism. So I've compiled a list of questions in the hopes to get some insight from you.
Okay then.
No nervous laughing around here or anything. Okay, so to kick it off, the first question: did you or your loved one drink daily or almost daily?
Yeah, most definitely. There was certainly a time where it was only a weekend occasion, especially in my younger years. As soon as I got into the adult life, it was pretty much an everyday thing.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
You've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. Okay, so at the time, had the quantity of alcohol increased?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it went from a few beers a night to 6 beers minimum to a couple of cartons over the weekend. Like, it did get out of control to the point where you couldn't function anymore, to the point where you couldn't have a genuine conversation. You could barely talk in general.
And how often do you think people underestimate what counts as too much drinking?
I think all the time. Like, to me, at the time, 6 beers was nothing. But I've spoken to many other people where they think 2 beers was enough. And I'm looking at them going, what do you mean 2 beers?
Right.
That's just getting started. So definitely can underestimate.
Was at any point drinking interfering with your work life, school, family responsibilities?
Yeah, it interfered with work a lot. I remember plenty of times where I'd still roll into work drunk from the night before. I even lost my apprenticeship at the time due to drinking, and that was at 18. And then obviously with family as well, like, I would choose alcohol over family. So I'd miss big events, or I'd be drunk at big events that we were having, and I'd always put that first.
I actually recall you having a pattern as well of getting to a certain amount of months in a job and then losing the job. And I remember you having a reason every single time, and it was never about you, or it couldn't have possibly been because it was your fault.
No, it was never my fault. No, so when I started the job, I would always go in there head down, bum up, and try and look favourable, I suppose, in front of other work crew, bosses, and do my job to the highest ability that I can. But then I get 3 months in and I start getting comfy in that position. And I would then start choosing everything else over doing the right thing at work. That was always my pattern that I'd have. And I'd always then blame work or someone at work or someone didn't like me. And it was never a like thing, or it was never my work ethic. It was always I'd turn up drunk, or I'd miss shifts, or I'd have sick days because I was drunk from the night before. That was always my pattern.
Yeah. Had friends or family members expressed concern about your drinking behaviour?
No, I don't think so.
Bullshit.
Nah, all the time. I've had many, many conversations with you alone, let alone my parents, your parents, friends, family members that would just say to me, like, is this the right path? Why are you this drunk? Why are you drinking this much? Like, it was a constant conversation that would come up.
I'd actually also feel sometimes like I was responsible for you too. So like if we went to certain events, people in our lives knew that you would drink, and when you drink, God knows what could come out. Some great dance moves or
The best.
well, debatable. But some good dance moves or just absolute gibberish or God knows what. And it was that unexpectedness that came with that. So there was parts where I had to frame up a lot of things to the family or almost enable you in a way. Like if you were sick or taken sick leave off work, I would justify that by saying that, no, he's actually generally sick, like he's got the cold. And like that was my part. Like I enabled you and protected you a lot.
I mean, I remember a lot of times you called in work for me to say I was
Yeah.
sick. And I mean, there was even times that mum took me to work when I was actually genuinely sick, because I think she would have thought that the company would have thought that I was blowing another day because I was drunk.
Yeah.
So she had to actually take me there to generally show them that I was actually sick. I think that was on her part, obviously the enabling as well.
Yeah. Which is, as the outside family members who experience someone who does have this type of relationship with alcohol or is an alcoholic, we can fall into that of just enabling the behavior. And then also on the flip side of that, it's the experience of you when you're not drinking. So we enable it because the other side to that is you being angry or anxious or frustrated. And it's like, okay, if you just had a couple of drinks, everything would just calm down. He would calm down and everything would be okay. So there is that justification and that part of enabling it. And I would 100% agree that I've spent a lot of our relationship making that okay.
That is a pretty shitty situation to be in. How, looking back on it now, do you feel about it all, about the enabling, about pretty much parenting me?
Yeah, I mean, looking back on my part in that, it's not okay. And truth be told, I just didn't have the skills or the tools at the time to deal with it in any other way. Like I didn't know how to help you. And I just wanted you to be okay. And in that moment, that was the only thing I knew how to do, was to just enable it. And the days just went by so quickly. The next thing you know, I've enabled it for 12 months and then 2 years. So looking back on it, it's not a proud moment, but I do acknowledge the fact that I did the best that I could with the skills that I had at the time, because it's not easy living with someone who is an alcoholic. It becomes the center of their whole entire universe, when we as women want to be the center of the whole entire universe. Which actually leads us into the next question. Did you experience or notice any physical or emotional effects tied to your alcohol consumption?
Physical and emotional. Yeah, physically, I was always a heavier set type of guy. So beer consumption quite often leads to heavier carbs. And I was always self-conscious about my body. So it doesn't matter how much I went to the gym and ate right, it'd all be thrown out as soon as alcohol got involved. So you'd go, yep, I'm eating real well today, I'm gymming today, then you'd have 15 beers and that would throw everything back out again. So that's physically. Emotionally, what tied me to alcohol emotionally was just the self-hatred for myself. And the only way to forget the self-hatred and get out of the depressed state and get out of just the self-loathing in general was to drink. The drinking made my thoughts stop, which led to worse things down the track, but it didn't allow me to think of that hatred for myself.
It was like a pause.
It just quietened it. Like you became this invincible guy that you were exactly who you wanted to be in thought and in feeling. You felt confident, you felt outgoing, you felt all these things that weren't obviously real, but you did it to become that new person. Then you wake up the next day and you feel like that old person, but worse again.
So it was like a form of escapism.
Yeah, it was just drowning out those thoughts and feelings, running away from it.
You know, when I wrote this list of questions, I really wrote them in the hopes that I could finally get some answers to some things that I wanted. But truthfully, I'm actually a little bit more emotional than I thought I was going to be hearing that, because it's just such a hard concept to think that you hated yourself that much, that you were literally going to drown yourself to death. And I just, as like you were talking, I had like a memory roll that come to mind of all the times where I could see that you completely abandoned yourself. All the mess, all the chaos. And it's just so far from the person that you are now. Like, it is a journey.
It certainly is. I mean, I didn't feel that I'd make it past 21. So for a long time after that, it just felt like borrowed time. You know, we even had our daughter at 21, and even that hatred of myself was still there. I loved her to bits. Loved you to bits. I just hated myself. So I just felt every day after that was just borrowed time. If I make it another day, then so be it. I didn't mean to make you cry.
Gosh, it just really highlights that there's just always somewhere to grow. The journey just never ends. The healing never ends. Yeah. All right. So, coming back, what's the first sign people typically notice when drinking starts to take a toll on their life?
First sign. I think this is probably more of a question I should be asking you. What was a sign you seen that was taking a toll on me?
Oh,
Gotcha.
Well, it was meant to be me asking. Okay. Well, thinking back, you were aging quite rapidly. So you were starting to slow down. Your body was aching more. You were also just getting quite grey in your complexion. You know, when you look at somebody and you can just tell that they're just not there, like no one's home. There was no liveliness about you. There was no getting up with a kick in your step and ready to take on the day. It was like you're getting up to just get through another day. Also, just how completely shut down you were emotionally. Like you were just so disconnected from yourself, from me, from the kids, like everything. It was like you were talking to nothing.
You were right. I was very shut down. I felt that. I felt we couldn't connect. And I very likely blamed you for half of that. Just because I was pointing that blame somewhere else. It was also me being so shut down and so disconnected in myself. I didn't care enough to do anything about it. I love and care for you very deeply, but I didn't care because it would help me. It would benefit me if we were connected. And feeling the way I felt for myself and about myself, doing anything to benefit me was never on the cards.
I think also I felt from you that you were scared of love and being loved completely.
I didn't know what it was. I was more scared of heartbreak. I don't think I've ever had love in the way we have it now, definitely. But you can't be afraid of something you've never had. But I've had heartbreak before. So if I don't go all in, I can't get hurt. If I stay back just enough that if anything does happen, it doesn't hurt. I just didn't allow myself or allow you the opportunity to hurt me.
Yeah. So you just hurt yourself instead.
Well, no one could hurt me like I could hurt me. I can bring myself down better than anyone else ever can. And I always have. It's something I always excelled at, being my own punching bag.
Has alcohol been used to deal with stress, anxiety, or depression in your experience?
Towards the end of drinking, that was 95%. It never used to be that way. Well, I felt it never used to be that way. Younger years of adulthood, it was about partying. So it was about connecting and having fun and enjoying your time. That's what the whole drinking thing was about. As I progressed on and the self-hatred and self-loathing got bigger and then depression formed, I then used 95% of it to get rid of the stress from work, stress from just general living, the anxiety that I was riddled with every day, and just being so depressed all the time that I drink to get rid of the depression, wake up next morning and then be depressed because I drank the night before.
It's like a vicious cycle.
It was a revolving door of beating myself up.
What were you stressed about?
I just got frustrated really easily, and learning more in terms of alcohol and what it does to your body. That would have been a main factor of why I got so frustrated so quickly. But I was just financially stressed, physically stressed. If injuries come in, I'd be stressed by injuries, especially when it comes to sports, stressed with the kids, stressed with you, stressed with the living arrangements. It's just any little thing that came in.
Quite often you would attract chaos as well, because to provide a bit of perspective here, you came from chaos. We talked about it in the previous episode where you came from a broken home, and in that there is chaos, which house are you staying at this week? The 2 sets of rules in a household, how tricky that is, how much people pleasing you need to do as a child. So there was always just a lot of chaos going on growing up. So it makes sense that that chaos just continued into your adulthood, and then you created chaos in our family. Was there regret or guilt after drinking?
I regretted the blackouts. I regretted the overconsumption from either being hungover or regrets what I've done or said while pissed, I suppose is the way of putting it. And it was almost every week thing. I'd say something stupid. I'd do something stupid, but act in a stupid way. Or I'd just overconsume and then wake up next morning hearing all these stupid stories of what happened or what you've said or what you've done. And then being that drunk from the night before that you don't remember any of it.
Do you think emotional triggers play such a huge role in alcohol dependency?
Emotional, it did for me. Stress and frustrations were my 2 biggest ones. And they're the ones that I felt pushed me towards alcohol. When it comes to stress, say financial stress, job hopping from place to place, you start financially putting pressure on the family. So for me not to stress about it, I would drink because it would calm me down. Obviously, you've got to spend money to buy alcohol, so it's kind of a catch-22 there. So when I was frustrated with you or the kids or work, I felt instead of lashing out, I'd try and find something to calm me down. And that's where alcohol came in.
Yeah. What I also found as well was like alcohol and gambling sort of went hand in hand. And I think for a lot of other people from what I hear is smoking and drinking also go hand in hand. You were a bit more on the gambling side, but I remember you would bet on horses for Melbourne Cup and for the local racing that we had on as well. So gambling was a big thing too. And when you are jumping from job to job and there is no financial security, I definitely felt like I had to step up and handle all of that. And I also feel that that contributed to you feeling less than or inferior, or that you couldn't be a provider, and that played into that cycle of alcohol dependency as well.
Yeah, you can feel inadequate and you can feel lesser than because you're now controlling the money, you're now taking care of the bills, and you're now running the household. I know a lot of husbands and wives take control of the house when it comes to the children and getting kids to their sports, but you still want to feel like the man of the house. I suppose from a man's perspective, you still want to feel like you're leading the house, not controlling the house, but leading the house, doing the right things, and everyone can come to you as a provider.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that we want to be taken care of. We want to be able to rely on our partners to be able to handle those things. Like, truth be told, I don't really want to be taking out the rubbish or controlling the money and telling you that you can't spend money here and you can't spend money there. We as women are wired for safety and security, and that includes the finances. That includes what money comes in. So when you are a serial job hopper, there is a blockage in the pipe of finances. So that puts pressure to then have to either 1, go out and make more money or bring more money in, or 2, tighten the budget, tell the kids, no, sorry, you can't go to little Johnny's birthday next week because we don't have any money, and create money patterns and money problems and then passing those beliefs on to our kids. So I would agree that for us women, when we can really step out and look at that from that perspective, we do want our partners to step up and lead. We do want him to be connected to us and engage with us in conversations of where the household is and where it's going, and take ownership and responsibility of everyone's well-being. And that isn't a control thing. That's coming from a place of love and compassion. And I know for a long time that's something that I really, really wanted. And when I didn't get it, I just stepped up. I handled fucking everything. I took the kids everywhere. I worked full time. I made sure the bills were paid. And I know that contributed to even more of that guilt and shame that you were feeling, and led you into the depths of your alcohol codependency, because not only were you feeling all of that before, now there was evidence, and I was confirming to you that you were not good enough.
We've also been breeding resentment for you to me. So for me then, the connection was getting even further apart. What a shit time for you. I do apologise for that.
Thank you. But there is hope, because we did figure it out. We did look at our relationship from a bird's eye view and took responsibility for both the parts that we were playing. And it wasn't what goes first, the chicken or the egg. It was, okay, I just have to take responsibility for my bit, you take responsibility for your bit, and let's see if we can clean this mess up a little.
Let's meet in the middle.
Yeah. And create something different, create something new. And I think people forget that, particularly if there's been a lot of years of heartbreak and heartache, that people don't realize that you can create a new relationship. In fact, you can have many relationships with the same person. As a very wise woman in my life reminds me, we can just keep creating an incredible life and an incredible relationship together if we both just keep taking accountability for our bit. And in our experience, that's been a massive payoff. So we're getting through them now. We've only got a few more to go, so bear with me. Have there been unsuccessful efforts to cut back or quit drinking?
Probably too many to count. Like, there were certainly times where guilt would play a part. I'm sure a lot of people have said this when it comes to, we have a big night, like, oh, never drinking again. 3 days later, you're back drinking again. Another event pops up, or stress comes in, or frustrations come in.
I mean, how many times do you see that on Facebook, right?
Every week.
Yeah, like you go on Facebook and someone's had a really bad hangover, and then they post a picture of themselves or a story and just go, I am never drinking again.
And then you see stories the next weekend and they're back out there.
It's so funny, isn't it?
So yeah, that's a time. I've had multiple times where I've had a week off. I've had a couple of weeks off. I've had, I think, 3 months off. But it would always lead back to the same spot. It would always lead back to, no, I'm okay now. I've had some time off. I'll have just a couple of beers and I can be responsible. And as soon as those couple of beers went down, all hell broke loose. I was back consuming as much as possible at an alarming rate and back down the same rabbit hole.
So what were the excuses that you would often make to justify your drinking?
That I deserved it. I had a hard day at work. I deserve a beer. Just played a game of footy. I deserve a beer. A celebration. I deserve a beer. Or I can have a beer. I can have copious amounts of beers because we're celebrating. So there was so many excuses, and I became the excuse king that I could use as to why.
Did you find that there were times where it was hard to stop after you decided to drink?
like I said, I've got no self-control. That was my hardest thing. My self-control just wasn't there. And I thought I did. When you're sober, you think you do. But my problem was I'd have a couple and then just forget. And then just all the thoughts I had that I could stop it went straight out the window, and next minute you've had 10 without even realizing, without even trying to stop yourself.
From a partner's perspective as well, there is nothing worse than hearing from your partner or your loved one, no, it's only going to be one beer. I'm only going for one beer. And I know it's not going to be one beer. You fucking know it's not going to be one beer. Yet you're saying that it's going to be one beer. And I remember a specific moment where I was so fucked off because you had a period where you'd stopped drinking. And then you decided to go out to this Christmas party. And you said, I'm only going for a couple of hours. It's just to connect with everybody and get to know everyone. I'm new, no surprises. It was a new job. And I'll be back at such and such time. I was like, yep, okay, no worries. I'm going to extend the trust rope here and give you that free rein. I'm not going to call. I'm not going to text. I'm just going to trust in the fact that you said it was going to be a couple of hours. You're only going to have a couple of beers, that you were driving there, and it was all going to be okay. So I put the kids to bed. We had a lovely night, and I went to bed. And then I woke up and it was 5 o'clock in the morning. So it'd been over 8 hours that you'd been gone and you still weren't there. I was calling you and I was texting you and I got nothing. So like a huge part of me was like, is he okay? Is he dead? Where the fuck is he? Why isn't he answering his phone? Like I was scared. It was about an hour later, so it was about 6 a.m. The sun was up and you'd roll through the door, your phone was dead. You said that you'd gone to this Christmas party and the boys then decided to go back to their place and play a game of pool and darts in the shed. And you thought that, yeah, it was a great idea. You're having a good time. I'll go back and I'll do that. And then I was like heartbroken because I felt like the trust between us had been severed. And all I kept thinking was, how can you be so fucking inconsiderate? Do you not love and care about me that much to not let me know that the plans had changed at a minimum? Or in my eyes at the time, just fucking do the 2 hours and come back and organize another time. And I think that was some of the worst moments in our relationship and where we actually started to talk about divorce.
I think unfortunately it was well before that we were talking about divorce.
Yeah.
It would come into play at least.
Well, the resentment was there for just so long.
Another idiotic play on my behalf. And unfortunately for you, you dealt with this on numerous occasions. And I feel like I've now forever played catch up with you because I could never repay you for what you've done for me and sticking by me through all the shit. Like, because that's not fair for you. It's not fair on the kids. It's not fair to have to basically babysit me, parent me and tell me I have to be home at a certain time because I can't control myself to come home at a certain time. To wake up and be freaked out thinking something might have been wrong because I hadn't talked to you or I hadn't come home at a certain time. You know, that's just not fair and it's not what your partner or your husband should be doing. And it's idiotic to think that guy is deserving of anything. I'm I'm not that guy anymore.
No, you're not.
I never want to be that guy again, because of how much pain it caused you, firstly, and also for the kids, and also for myself. None of us deserve that.
I think the most important thing to take away from this is that, yes, the feelings are still there, but they're not there with us in our new relationship. Like, we've been able to get to a place where we can clear the slate. We can forgive each other for the things that we didn't know. We can forgive each other for the lack of skills that we had. And a huge part of choosing to move forward is choosing to forgive anyway. And sometimes it's not even about forgiving for them. It's about forgiving for yourself. We are the most hardest on ourselves. So we talked about how hard it did get and what excuses were being made. But I want to know if there was ever a time that you were hiding your drinking from me.
Yeah, there was. Especially later on, before I gave it up, I knew that I was disappointing you, mostly. Our connection was getting closer, but my drinking was still there. And I know you started to give it up. You did eventually give it up. So I didn't want to disappoint you or have criticism from you for my drinking. So what I'd do is I'd hide it. That's not saying that you caused me to hide it. That's just me hiding it, knowing that I was doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So there were definitely times where I would sneak to the pub on the way home, have a quick couple of beers at the pub, and then say I finished late. There was even times where I used to drink before I go to footy training or gridiron training, train and then drink on the way home, or have a few beers after training at the club.
And what's like a few?
I remember on the way to gridiron, which for me was about a half an hour drive, I bought 8-pack of beers and I drank 4 of them on the way there. I was even upset with myself for doing it, knowing it was the wrong move, because I should be showing up in my best state for my teammates. So I got there, had the 4 beers on the way, felt shitty, went out, basically ran myself into the ground at training to prove a point to myself that, I don't know, you are a dickhead. Like, what are you doing this for?
Like a form of punishment?
Like a punishment, exactly right. I punished myself for doing that. And then I drove home afterwards and then finished the other 4 beers on the way home.
Wow. Where did you put the empty cans?
I had to hide them in the back of my car. I couldn't put them in the bin because then you'd see them.
Right.
You know, this was just this crazy little game I had in my head. And then I come home and I'd pretend like nothing happened and I'd quickly have a shower and I'd jump into bed like I was tired. It was just, it got to the point where it was disgusting, where I wasn't even doing it for enjoyment anymore. Like, people sometimes drink to celebrate and enjoyment and then connect with people. I was doing it just for the sake of doing it.
So it's fair to say that your drinking led to some unsafe actions.
A lot of, I mean, like we talked about in the last podcast, there was numerous drink driving.
Well, I mean, even drinking 4 cans on the way to gridiron training and then the other 4 on the way home. I mean, surely that's over the legal limit.
Yeah, no doubt. But I mean, I wish I could say that was the only time I drank drove. Like, I mean, I drank drove on more occasions than I can remember. Sometimes just over the limit, sometimes way over the limit. But either way, I shouldn't have been in the car, shouldn't have been doing what I was doing. Definitely have some angels above that are stopping me from hitting a tree, hitting another person. Someone's looking out for me because I played my hand way too many times.
It's hard to say because judgment does come to mind on my behalf. It's like, how come she didn't see it? Or how come she didn't stop it? And there's a part of me that feels responsible for that. Like, I really should have stopped you more. And my way on doing that was that I took the responsibility of driving. You were just not allowed to drive. Like, I would jump in the seat. I drove us everywhere. I knew that if we were going to specific events, that you were going to be drinking anyway. So I was just going to be default driver. And I will say, on a positive note, that when you did start to get serious about your sobriety, one of the things that I absolutely loved was you being able to drive.
It's something I've actually really enjoyed as well. I mean, as funny as it sounds, in terms of being able to drive to the shop at 8 p.m. at night, I'm sure everyone listening does it all the time. It was something I never could do, at least sober. It'd be something I'd either drink, drive and do it and do the wrong thing, or I couldn't do it and you'd have to go do it.
I actually remember how excited you were the first time we went through, what are they called?
Oh, the booze bus?
Yeah, the booze bus. I remember how, like, you were so excited, like, pull me over. Like, I actually remember just how big of a deal that was to you, something that everyday people just want to avoid. But for you, it was like, I want to be pulled over. I want to blow zeros. And it was like a big achievement for you.
Yeah, it certainly was. And it was, I know it's quite a funny thing to be excited about. I was avoiding them at all costs.
Yeah, I remember you used to like see an RBT up the road. You'd take the road before it just to avoid it.
Or even back in the hometown, it's such a small town. You go on Facebook, you try and see if anyone's put up any locations where they are, knowing you're over the limit, just to make sure you didn't get caught on the way home. Like, these were just real things.
And it's just fucking ridiculous. Really, when you, like, as the people we are now, when we look back on it, yes, there's compassion and yes, there's understanding, but it's also just looking and going, wow, it's just ridiculous to imagine that that's something that was a real thing that we put a lot of effort and energy and thought into doing. And I was even a part of that. Like, I didn't want you to get caught and lose your license again. So was there any point where you asked yourself, do I have a problem?
Towards the end, yes. Through it, no. I didn't believe I did. And it's silly to think, because you hear all these stories and you'll hear more as we go along, that how did you not see the signs?
Yeah.
How did you not know? How did you not feel into that you definitely had a problem? And how can you keep going on like this? But you're so caught in your ways, you're so caught in your own self-loathing that you just don't even, I was going to say you don't want to give it up, but there's that, you feel that you can't.
So what are the things that you would say to yourself before it got to that point? Like, you don't have a problem, I'm not like them, I can control it. Was that sort of the inner dialogue?
So at times you'd feel like, yeah, I don't need to stop. I can control it when I want to. I can not drink when I want to. Looking back, none of them were true, because I couldn't. So I had so much control over me that I couldn't just stop if I wanted to. I couldn't give it away. And then there's even a feeling of, if I gave it away, who am I? Who am I if I'm not this?
In that experience, has there been hesitation or fear around reaching out for support?
Yes. The short answer, yes. You are hesitant to, I guess, one, admit to it. Admitting that you've got a problem, you've got to sort it. But there's also fear of judgment and criticism from loved ones. I know that I've tried to give it up in the past, and every time I try to give it up, I'd obviously fail again, and I'd drink again, I'd try again. And I keep telling you, yep, I'm giving up this time, I'm giving up. And it got to a point where you just didn't believe me.
Yeah.
You couldn't believe me. How could you believe someone that keeps doing the same thing over and over again?
Well, I had plenty of evidence.
You did.
Lots of receipts.
That I provided you. So I was afraid of the criticism. Even this time when I gave it up and I knew deep down that this is it, I was still had fear, to tell you. Fear of how you think. And the line I assumed you would have said to me was, yeah, righto, bullshit.
I've heard it all before.
Exactly right. So I still had fear of even telling you, even after I'd given up. I'd gone to see you about it, and I still had that fear that you wouldn't accept that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I feel for other people that might have that same feeling, that same fear, they might get the same from their loved ones. But even I didn't know who to reach out to outside of my family. Because I've got friends, but usually when you're an alcoholic, your friends group are alcoholics.
Yeah, yeah.
Or are heavy drinkers as well, or do like to party as you would. So to try and explain to them that, hey guys, I'm now stopping, like I'm sure they'll be the first people to try and get you back on the bandwagon. I don't understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And they might not have the problem like you do, but they are still drinking. I felt I didn't have anyone else to reach out to in terms of, I want to give up. How do I give up? It wasn't until I went to a men's event. It was a 6-day event where we learned a lot about ourselves personally, spiritually, emotionally, to be a better version of ourselves for our family. And in that event, you have coaches who help you obviously learn a lot about yourself and why you do the things that you do. So I got a really big awakening in that event. I went in with the intention of giving it up. And with that awakening, I gave it up with their help. So I ended up having my own personal coaches at the time to help me get to that point where I needed to get to, which was, nearly 2 years ago now. But it's just having someone there that would listen and would help you through what you're going through.
What's your advice for someone who's not sure if they're ready to face the possibility of being an alcoholic?
My advice, the first step to healing is admitting. And then from then on, it's just one day at a time. But it's admitting to yourself that you deserve better. You don't have to go through the whole AA thing of, I'm such and such and I'm alcoholic, but it's just admitting to yourself that you want better for you. You don't have to fight it alone. Reach out. I'm happy to just have a conversation, see where you're at, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. It's really brave. So if you are somebody who is wanting to get sober, who is the person that comes to mind that goes, yep, I want them helping me through my sobriety? Where's the man that walked the path, that knows what it's like to be in the depths of that, being swallowed up by your addiction? And where's that person that knows all the challenges that come with that, with work, with a marriage and a relationship, with kids, family? So you stepping out and deciding to open RecoverMate for the sole purpose of just sharing your stories in the hope that it helps somebody else is more than brave. And I'm so incredibly proud.
Thanks, Sally. This wouldn't be a thing without you. I may be the face of this, but you're the heart and soul. You bring the best out of me every day. And I certainly wouldn't be around today without you. So you saved me in the hopes that I can help save somebody else.
Made a good man out of you.
Is that us?
That's it.
Yes. I made it through unscathed.
Couple of tears though.
There were, yes.
My
My
goodness.
apologies. No, I actually really enjoyed those questions.
Yeah.
I hope the listeners at home got to get an insight.
Yeah. And I hope they see something that is relatable, because it's really brave for you to step out and to do this. Like, there's not many people that are willing to put their life on the line and be so open and raw and honest about their past. And I know when you were first stepping into sobriety, you were really struggling with that. And it's hard to find somebody that's walked the path that you had. And yes, there's AA, like you mentioned, and we've spoken about in the previous episode, and there is that support. But just putting yourself out there on the line like that and being so raw and open and honest about your past is beyond brave. And when you first told me that you were opening up RecoverMate for the sole purpose of sharing your stories in the hopes that it inspires somebody else to make a change in their life, it's beyond amazing.
Thank you.
This podcast did not go the way that I had hoped it would. I really thought I'd had some questions and I was going to get to the bottom of some things that I've always wanted to know, but it ended up being so much more emotional than I anticipated. And I'm so grateful that we've done enough work to be able to have this conversation and that we actually got to have the conversation. Yes, it's amazing for everybody who needs this and who's going to receive this. But just being here in the moment with you right now, it's been such a healing moment for me.
I'm actually starting to look forward to podcasting.
Yes.
Just because I get to spend that one-on-one time with you
Yeah.
and really connect deeper.
Have those more meaningful conversations.
Obviously not the talking part, but the connecting part I really enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're seeing yourself or a loved one in any of these signs, remember it's not about the labeling. It's about taking steps and getting support to move towards having a healthier relationship with yourself. Reconnecting, recovering, and rebuilding are always possible.
Thanks, guys, for listening to another episode of the RecoverMate Podcast. See you next time.